After a tragic accident, I was paralyzed and now use a wheelchair. My ruthless husband and mother-in-law unnecessarily shouted at me. My husband said, "I don't need a paralyzed wife." He threw a wine glass at me and ordered me to leave the house, demanding a divorce. I was so frustrated that I decided to take revenge from my wheelchair. Within a few months, they both found themselves on the street, begging for help from me. I'm Dorothy Green, and my life changed dramatically 6 months ago. At 34, I thought I had it all figured out. I had a loving husband, David, a decent home, and I was running my own online retail business from the comfort of my house in Atlanta, Georgia. But everything crumbled after the accident. It was an ordinary Wednesday. The sun was shining, and I had just wrapped up a new batch of orders for my online shop. I felt proud of my little venture. I was excited about a new design I had just launched, and business was booming. I remember sitting at my kitchen table, packing up the orders and daydreaming about the future. David came home from work that day, and we shared dinner, laughing and talking about our day. But that night, everything changed. I remember stepping outside to take a breath of fresh air. It was one of those moments where you feel on top of the world, you know? But as I took a step down from the porch, I misjudged the distance. My foot slipped, and before I knew it, I was tumbling down the stairs. The pain shot through my body like a lightning bolt, and in an instant, my life was turned upside down. After the fall, I woke up in a hospital bed, the sterile smell of antiseptic filling my nose. I felt a heavy weight on my legs. Panic surged through me as I realized I couldn't move them. Doctors delivered the devastating news. I had sustained a spinal injury, and I would be paralyzed from the waist down. I felt my world closing in. The days that followed were filled with therapy sessions and emotional turmoil. David visited every day at first, but I could see the change in him. He was no longer the supportive husband I once knew. The looks of sympathy turned to pity. I could sense the frustration in his voice as he tried to help me. "You're so strong, Dorothy," he would say, but I could hear the strain beneath his words. The longer I remained in the hospital, the more distant he seemed. I desperately wanted to believe he was still by my side, but doubt crept in. When I was finally discharged, I returned home to live with David and his mother, Linda. My mother-in-law was a retired woman in her late 50s who never shied away from expressing her disdain for housework. I had always sensed her disapproval, but now, with my new limitations, it felt magnified. At first, I tried to adapt. I made sure my online business was running smoothly, relying on help from friends and family to manage my tasks. I thought David would be there to support me, but I soon realized he was overwhelmed. He would come home from work, exhausted and frustrated, taking it out on me. "Why can't you do anything for yourself?" he snapped one evening. It was a simple question, but it cut deep. I stared at him in shock. "David, I'm trying my best," I replied, feeling tears well up. "This isn't easy for me either. You need to pull yourself together, Dorothy. We can't keep living like this," he said, his voice raised. I felt as if I was being crushed under the weight of his expectations. Linda, who stood in the doorway, didn't help. She crossed her arms, giving me that disappointed look I had seen so many times before. "You were always the one who took care of the house, Dorothy. Now look at you," she said, shaking her head. "David deserves a wife who can do her part." Those words felt like daggers. I was still the same person inside, but it seemed no one could see that anymore. I could feel the walls closing in around me, and I knew I was becoming a burden. I tried to push those feelings aside, focusing on my work. I had my online business to think about, and I was determined to make it thrive. But the pressure mounted. I could sense the change in David. He grew more resentful every day. One evening, he came home, his face flushed with anger. "Just leave me alone," he yelled as I tried to ask about his day. I shrank back, my heart racing. "David, what's wrong?" I asked softly, hoping to break through his frustration. But he didn't answer. Instead, he stormed into the living room, and I could hear Linda whispering to him, fueling his anger. I sat in my wheelchair, feeling like an outsider in my own home. I watched as David paced back and forth, his agitation growing. When he finally turned to me, I could see the hurt in his eyes. "I can't do this anymore," he spat, throwing a wine glass across the room. I don't want a paralyzed wife in this house. His words hit me like a slap in the face. I felt the tears streaming down my cheeks as he declared he wanted a divorce, his voice full of venom. Leave, Dorothy. Just leave. In that moment, I felt my heart shatter. I had never felt so alone. The very man I loved had turned into someone unrecognizable. It was as if I had become a ghost in my own life. I watched as he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I was left in a cold, empty room, shattered and defeated. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized something had to change. I was done being the victim. I would not allow their betrayal to define me. It was time to reclaim my life, to seek revenge on the people who had pushed me into this dark corner. With a newfound determination, I began plotting my comeback. I knew I had the skills to turn my online business into something bigger. I wouldn't just survive, I would thrive. But first, I needed to break free from the chains of betrayal that bound me. The next day marked the beginning of my transformation, and I swore to myself that I would make David and Linda regret their choices. I would rise from the ashes, stronger than ever. Little did I know, this journey would lead me to places I never imagined, pushing me to my limits and testing my resolve. But I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The days that followed my confrontation with David were a blur of emotions. I felt a storm brewing inside me, anger, determination, and a fierce desire for revenge. I knew I had to reclaim my life, starting with my business. I had always been passionate about my online retail venture, and it was time to channel that passion into something powerful. The morning after David left, I woke up early. The sun was just peeking through the blinds, casting a warm glow across my bedroom. I took a deep breath and rolled my wheelchair to my desk, where my laptop sat. I had always loved creating, and now I had to focus on building something that would not only sustain me, but also prove my worth to myself, and to those who doubted me. I started by revisiting my business plan. I had always operated in a small space, mostly selling handmade crafts and personalized gifts. But now I envisioned something bigger. I wanted to expand my inventory, reach new customers, and, most importantly, find a way to market my products effectively. I contacted my friend Diane, who had worked in marketing for years. I remembered how she had always been supportive of my dreams, even when I felt lost. "Dorothy, is everything okay?" Diane asked, her voice concerned as I explained my situation. I could hear the sympathy in her tone, but I didn't want pity. I needed action. "I need your help to revamp my business. I want to make it bigger than ever," I said, my voice steady with determination. "Of course. I'll be right over," she replied. When Diane arrived, I could see the excitement in her eyes as I shared my vision. We brainstormed for hours, mapping out a new strategy that included new product lines and a comprehensive marketing plan. "I think you should focus on a theme that highlights resilience," Diane suggested. "You've been through so much, and people will connect with your story." I nodded, inspired. "Yes. I want my products to reflect strength and empowerment." With her help, I redesigned my website, giving it a fresh, modern look that captured the essence of my new direction. We created compelling content that showcased my journey and my dedication to building a thriving business. I was surprised at how much energy I had. Each new idea sparked excitement within me. In the weeks that followed, I immersed myself in my work. I spent long hours developing new products, working on my branding, and reaching out to potential suppliers. I even enrolled in online courses to sharpen my marketing skills. I felt empowered, and every small victory fueled my ambition. Meanwhile, life at home continued to unravel for David and Linda. I heard through friends that David was struggling to find a job after his company went bankrupt. The once confident man I knew was now a shadow of his former self. Linda, too, faced mounting pressure as the family's financial situation worsened. They had to sell their house and move into a cramped, run-down apartment, and I felt a flicker of satisfaction at the thought. One day, while I was deep in my work, I received a call from Diane. "Dorothy, I've been hearing about David and Linda," she said, her voice laced with concern. "They've fallen on hard times. I don't want to worry you, but they might be reaching out to you soon. I took a deep breath, considering her words. Part of me felt guilty, but another part relished the idea of them coming to me for help after how they had treated me. I'm ready for whatever they throw my way, I said, my voice steady. I've worked too hard to go back now. As my business began to thrive, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was no longer the victim. I was a survivor, determined to take control of my destiny. Each sale, each positive review, and each message from happy customers reinforced my resolve. One evening, as I was reviewing sales figures, my phone buzzed with an incoming message. It was from an unknown number. My heart raced as I opened it, recognizing Linda's name. "Dorothy, we need to talk. We're struggling, and I don't know where else to turn," the message read. A mixture of emotions washed over me: anger, disbelief, and a strange sense of satisfaction. They had pushed me to the edge, and now they were seeking my help? I stared at the screen, contemplating my response. Finally, I typed back, "I'm not in a position to help you, Linda. You and David made your choices." As I hit send, I felt a surge of empowerment. I was standing firm in my resolve. I had come too far to let them pull me back into their chaos. I was finally taking control of my life, and there was no turning back. With every day that passed, I felt stronger, more determined to succeed. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of my journey, one that would lead me to unexpected places and test my resilience in ways I never imagined. But for now, I was ready to embrace my new life and the challenges that lay ahead. As my online business continued to grow, I couldn't shake the feeling that David and Linda were lurking in the background, waiting for an opportunity to reach out. I had built a life for myself, and I wasn't about to let them disrupt my newfound peace. But deep down, I also felt a flicker of curiosity about how their lives had spiraled since the divorce. One afternoon, as I was packaging orders, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call from an unknown number. My heart raced. I hesitated, but then I answered. "Hello," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Dorothy, it's Olivia," came the voice on the other end. I hadn't spoken to her since the divorce. "Olivia, what's up?" I tried to sound casual, but I was already bracing myself for whatever was coming. "I'm calling because, well, it's about David and Mom," she said, her voice shaky. "Things aren't going well. They really need your help." I leaned back in my chair, the weight of her words sinking in. "What do you mean? What happened?" "David lost his job, and Mom can't keep up with the bills. They're in a really bad spot," Olivia admitted. "They had to sell their house, and now they're living in a tiny apartment. Please, can you just think about it?" I felt a mix of emotions, sympathy for Olivia, but also a sense of satisfaction. They had made their choices, and now they were facing the consequences. "Olivia, I appreciate you reaching out, but they pushed me out of their lives when I needed support. I can't just forget that." I know, but please, just hear them out." "I'm worried about them," she pleaded. "Maybe if you talk to them, you could find a way to help." After hanging up, I stared at my reflection in the window. Did I want to help them? Part of me wanted to say no, but another part wondered if confronting them could bring me closure. Maybe it was time to face the ghosts of my past. That evening, I decided to call Linda. The moment I heard her voice, a wave of memories washed over me. The hurtful comments, the looks of disdain. But I steeled myself. "Linda, I got a call from Olivia. She said you need help," I said, my voice calm but firm. "Yes, Dorothy. I never wanted it to come to this," she replied, sounding defeated. "David is struggling, and I don't know what to do." "Maybe you should have thought about that before demanding a divorce," I shot back, unable to hide my resentment. "You treated me like a burden. Why should I help now?" "I know I was wrong," Linda admitted, her tone softer. "I let my anger cloud my judgment. We thought we could manage without you, but we were wrong. David needs your support." I took a deep breath, letting her words sink in. Was I really willing to help them? "What exactly do you want from me?" "Just a loan to help us get back on our feet." "We'll pay you back, I promise," she said, desperation lacing her voice. I paused, weighing my options. I had worked hard to build my life, and I didn't want to jeopardize my success. but the thought of them struggling tugged at my heart. "I'll think about it," I finally said, trying to sound noncommittal. "But I'm not making any promises." The next day, I found myself wrestling with my thoughts. I had the power to help them or to turn my back completely. I wanted to remain strong and not fall into the trap of old emotions. Days turned into a week, and finally, I decided to pay them a visit. I needed to see for myself what had become of them. As I rolled up to their small apartment, I felt a rush of emotions. I knocked on the door, my heart pounding in my chest. When Linda opened it, she looked worn out, her face showing signs of stress. David stood behind her, and the moment our eyes met, I could see the regret in his gaze. "Dorothy," he said, his voice low, "thanks for coming." I took a deep breath, preparing for the conversation ahead. This was it, the moment I would finally confront the people who had betrayed me and see how they had changed. As I entered their cramped apartment, I was hit by a wave of memories, both good and bad. The walls were bare, and the furniture was minimal. David and Linda looked like shadows of their former selves. David, once confident and proud, now wore a look of defeat. I felt a strange mix of pity and satisfaction as I took in the scene. "Thanks for coming, Dorothy," Linda said, her voice shaky. "We really appreciate it." I nodded, trying to maintain my composure. "Let's cut to the chase. You called me because you need help, right?" David shifted uncomfortably. "Yes, things have been rough. I've applied to several jobs, but nothing has come through. Mom can barely pay the bills, and we're struggling to keep the lights on." "Why didn't you think about all this when you were pushing me away?" I asked, my tone sharper than I intended. "You both made it clear I was a burden." Linda looked down, clearly ashamed. "I know. I regret everything. I let my frustrations take over. We thought we could manage, but the reality hit hard." I took a deep breath, forcing myself to remember why I was there. "What exactly do you want from me?" David hesitated, glancing at Linda before speaking. "We're asking for a loan. Just enough to get us back on our feet. We'll pay you back as soon as I find a job. Do you realize how much I've struggled to get where I am?" I shot back, my anger bubbling to the surface. "You both made it clear I wasn't welcome in your lives. Why should I help you now?" "We were wrong, Dorothy." "I see that now," Linda said, her eyes pleading. "I understand if you don't want to help, but things are dire for us." As I listened to their desperate pleas, I felt a flicker of sympathy for them. But I also recognized that this was a chance for me to stand firm in my self-worth. I had worked too hard to rebuild my life to let them back in without conditions. "I'll consider it," I said finally, deciding to buy some time. "But this isn't just about the money. You need to understand what you did to me, how it felt to be treated like a burden." David nodded, looking remorseful. "I'm sorry, Dorothy. I didn't mean what I said back then. I was angry, and I took it out on you. I realize now how much I hurt you." "Words are easy, David. Actions matter more," I replied, holding his gaze. "If I do help you, it will come with conditions. You both need to take responsibility for your actions and prove that you've changed." "I understand," Linda said quietly. "We'll do whatever it takes to show you we're serious about making amends." I left their apartment that day with a heavy heart, but a sense of empowerment. I had confronted the people who had betrayed me and had the power to help or walk away. Over the next few weeks, I mulled over my decision. I eventually agreed to give them a loan, but only on the condition that they committed to financial counseling and actively seek employment. I wanted them to understand the value of hard work, just as I had learned it myself. As they took steps to improve their situation, I watched them grow more determined. David eventually found a job, and Linda started helping out at a local community center. It was rewarding to see them trying to rebuild their lives, but I also felt a sense of distance. They were no longer a part of my life in the way they once were, and I was okay with that. My business continued to thrive, and I embraced my independence. I had learned the hard way that betrayal can be a catalyst for personal growth. In facing the ghosts of my past, I found my strength and resilience. Looking back, I realized that I wasn't just a survivor of my circumstances. I was a warrior, ready to take on whatever challenges life threw my way. The journey had changed me, and I was finally free to live life on my own terms, thriving in a world I had rebuilt from the ground up.